yeah. Hey, way too fast. I gotta go, I'm in the zone, foot on the gas. Yeah. GPS, I got goals, I know where to go, so I never crash. Hey, way too fast. I gotta go, I'm in the zone, foot on the gas. Hey, GPS, I got goals, I know where to go, so I never crash. Yeah, I'm in the end zone. Where did he go? You way too slow, homie, I been gone. I know you see, I got the wings, homie, I been flown. Me and the team going for rings, that is the end goal. Hey, I go beast mode, all on the world like Eco. I go crazy like CeeLo, can't stop me like Chico's. I'm suave like Rico, can't be mine no repo. This my home like Depot, can't deny like Vito. Hey, way too fast. I gotta go, I'm in the zone, foot on the gas. Yeah. GPS, I got goals, I know where to go, so I never crash. Hey, way too fast. I gotta go, I'm in the zone, foot on the gas. Yeah. Hey, GPS, I got goals, I know where to go, so I never crash. Way too fast. I gotta go, I'm in the zone, foot on the gas. Yeah. GPS, I got goals, I know where to go, so I never crash. Hey, way too fast. I gotta go, I'm in the zone, foot on the gas. Yeah. Hey, GPS, I got goals, I know where to go, so I never crash. I got the fam, I got the keys, I get to work. I am the man, you know what I'm saying, so leave it to me, cause I get it first, yeah. Woo. I've been going all day, man, same plan, can't change that. Till I'm right around, whole squad sitting back, chilling in the Maybach. Yeah, only as deep as your roots go. I don't do corny like fructose. If you got the drummer, that's word to my mama, I'll cover you up like a tombstone. I was fast in my past, now you see I'm the one. They say work, never work, if you work and it's fun. We on the winning team, on top where you find us. We can do anything, non-stop till our time's up. We on the winning team, on top where you find us. We can do anything, non-stop till our time's up. We can do, we coming up from the dirt, they tryna get us to fall, I don't even gotta flex now, boy, it's only win by the fall, taking off with the ring, ain't nothing left, man, we the kings, ran with the team, ran with the dream, ran with the one fan in the seats, I pay my dues, check the receipt, looking at you already peaked, way back then, you can't follow with my tracks, man. I was fast in my past, now you see I'm the one, they say work, never work, if you work and it's fun, we on the winning team, on top where you find us, we can do anything, non-stop till our time's up, we on the winning team, on top where you find us, we can do anything, non-stop till our time's up, we on the winning team, on top where you find us, we can do anything, non-stop till our time's up, we on the winning team, on top where you find us, we can do anything, non-stop till our time's up. story of her.
The pursuit to a championship steps into the realm of gladiators, where the middle ground sets the stage for 12 drivers trying to survive and advance into the next round. Bristol Motor Speedway rings in the next challenge. We're live. The KBueno Racing Network welcomes you to race number 19 of the 2025 Droppin the Hammah Cup Series and our second race in the playoffs for the round of 12. And so excited that you're joining us tonight on the KBueno Racing Network for another edition of the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series, where in the broadcast booth here from Bristol, Tennessee in Sim, I am Kenneth Bueno. Well, from what we've seen over the last several weeks between a road course and a mile and a half, things have really shaped up in the battle for this Droppin the Hammah Cup Series championship. The one common thread, Lawson Peel. We'll get to that in just a moment, but for the most part, we have stepped further and further into these playoffs, and for right now, middle race of the round of 12 as we started it last week at the virtual Texas Motor Speedway. We'll kick things off here at the Last Great Coliseum in Bristol. We'll step over into Darlington, three very different tracks between a mile and a half, a short track here tonight, and then of course that very interesting Darlington circuit that always seems to pose very many challenges for a lot of the drivers in the field. But as we see it, we step into the basically crunch time moment of these Droppin the Hammah Cup Series playoffs, because we've got Kansas, Talladega, Atlanta, Homestead next. It's only the round of 8, and then that Championship 4 finale in South Florida in mid-August. So the time is starting to dwindle. The drivers are starting to get a little bit more desperate. They're starting to throw out those heaves in search for an advancement into the next round. So far, they've been denied 2 straight races by the driver who has won 3 Sunoco Cup Series championships and has won the most races of the season in Lawson Peel so far. But let's get a bit of a refresher as to what happened last week in the Lone Star State, Texas Motor Speedway, where our good friend and member of the KBueno Racing Network, Francisco Bacalhau, held down the fort for the last 2 weeks. This was the green flag here. Stempian and Stephen Harlow going for the green flag first, and then trouble on the opening 2 laps. Sean Kalis getting involved hard into the outside wall. Eric Schaefer, James Kunkel among those taking center stage in that first incident, but we would go mostly green from there on out. Stempian would end up taking the stage victory, his 7th career stage win of the season. He's topped the most out of any of the drivers so far this season in that regard. Then good racing up in the mid-pack, and then at the front of the field. First proper challenge that Stempian faced all night long was in the form of course, the dominant driver of the series, Lawson Peel, who ended up going around. Stempian ended up finding his way back to the inside, but as they chased into the final 15 laps of the second stage, Peel would end up finding his way back around, and for the first time this season, that's when Lawson Peel was able to capture a stage victory. It feels a little bit odd that we're saying Lawson Peel's name the first time in terms of stage wins, although he's won 7 races up until this point. Then a bit of contact there. Jesse Graham in his debut race in the Texas Motor Speedway last week getting involved in an incident, and then a bit of playoff trouble for the 32 car. That's Richard Swavely getting sideways. And once we stepped into a long green flag run, boy, did the racing get phenomenal. 3 cars in the battle for the race lead between Warren Kyle Keith, Steven Stempian, and the man on the outside who charged his way through in turns 1 and 2. An absolutely phenomenal move by Lawson Peel to get his way to the outside. He would take away the lead, and that is all that she wrote until this moment right here. Schaefer and Ethan Fonseca Moreno getting involved in an incident off of turn 4. We've seen them beef before. It looked like they had a bit more of that animosity come about on that final corner there with 3 laps to go, which set up the first and only attempt at overtime. Peel would get the best jump off of the field entering turn 1, and he would never relinquish control. Win number 7 of the 2025 season goes to Lawson Peel, his first at the Texas Motor Speedway, and of course will advance into the next round that begins at Kansas in about 3 weeks time. So with that victory, he steps into the next round swimmingly after advancing into this round via a win earlier in the postseason, ends up with the W, and then that's what settles out the points right behind him. Steven Stempien, Ross Harlow, Stephen Harlow, all three of them members of that Droppin the Hammah race team. They have really performed over the last several races. They have been able to give themselves a solid buffer to those behind them. But things really start to get interesting when you step into 7th and 8th place with Warren Kyle Keith and Zachary Hall. They are about a mere 13 points or less above the cut line going into tonight's race. It is only a 4-point buffer between Zachary Hall and the 23 car, and then the Talladega winner who's been able to survive so far throughout this postseason in Craig Parks. And it's only single digits up until 10th place, and then it's 11 points out between Alexander Muscarella and then Richard Swavely, who we saw go sideways on the back straightaway earlier in that highlight video. So still early days here in this round of 12, but like we've seen in this 3-race playoff round format, you really cannot risk anything when it comes down to trying to fight for a postseason appearance, and in the case of this one, a postseason round appearance as you move forward. And when things continue to slimmer down and the elimination starts getting heavier and heavier, you're starting to think about much more dire circumstances, much more desperation for the drivers involved. So far, as we step into Bristol tonight, that probably will be the thing on the mind of those guys 9th on back, is just trying to stay above, stay afloat, so that they can give themselves a good entryway into Darlington Raceway that happens in a couple of weeks' time. Well, drivers are sat behind the iRacing official pace car, and as they sit at the start-finish line, let's give you the starting grid and see how all the drivers are going to be lining up for tonight's race here in the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series, race number 19 and the second race in this round of 12. We're on the front row. It is a pair of Droppin the Hammah teammates. Ross Harlow captures the top spot with a 14.592. He will lead us to the green flag tonight alongside his teammate, the 48 car of Alex Muscarella, who is several points beneath the cut line tonight. 11 points he has to make up if he wants to stay above the cut line going into Darlington. He's going to be on the outside of row number 1. Back in row 2, you'll find Steven Stempien. Good qualifying effort for the Massachusetts native. Here we'll off on the inside of the second row with Jason Anderson. Haven't seen the 92 car in a little while, but a big welcome back to Anderson as he rolls off from 4th. Solid qualifying effort tonight. Back in row 3, you'll find a pair of playoff drivers, starting with Zachary Hall, who was just 1 spot short of the win earlier on in this postseason at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. He'll be 5th. Stephen Harlow in the 11 car will roll off on his outside in position number 6. Kip Easley for the Drinkin' Bros Racing Camp alongside Eric Schaefer in row number 4, 7th and 8th. 2 drivers that were initially part of the playoffs but were eliminated off of the precipice of the round of 16. They're going to try and fight for a Droppin the Hammah Cup Series win tonight from Bristol with nothing else to stake. And then behind them, inside the top 10, Cedric Hunter in the number 45 car, winner from Charlotte earlier on this season, and Warren Kyle Keith in his 78 Toyota Camry, still yearning for a first career W in this series. He's been close many times. He'll be rolling off from row number 5. Back in row number 6 is where you'll find the 57 car, Jeff Gilmore, in another start here for this series. Richard Swavely in the 32 machine. He's also, like Muscarella, 11 points shy of the cut line in the round of 12 going into tonight's race. Back in row number 7 is where you'll find Justin Erb, a part of that TOW Racing Camp. And then, of course, the 7-time race winner this season, Lawson Peel. Typical not qualifying for the Columbus, Mississippi native, but he'll be 14th tonight. Top 15 will go to the several race winner this season, Stephen Maggio in the 97 car. Brandon Banks in the 5 will roll off from P16 on the outside of row 8, which brings us to some of the 2 final rows tonight. Craig Parks in the 17 car is 17th. Brad Fulham in 18th. Back in row number 10 is where you'll find Casey Knighton and the 77 car of Kevin Roy. Ready for the middle race in this round of 12 for the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series from Bristol. Green flag in the air. And after the opening lap, so far, so good in the hands of Ross Harlow. Cars in the outside wall, though. Jason Anderson had a good start to this race, and all of a sudden faces the outside barrier. You saw him and Zachary Hall, that number 23 Toyota Camry, get involved in it. Looks like they woed up there in the middle of the corner, but as they round out of turn 4, looks like no harm, no foul will stay green, although Anderson drops to a mere 16th place despite everything that gone on for that qualifying effort that got him up front. It's a rather quick lap here at Bristol Motor Speedway. Blink and you'll be about 4 laps deep into a green flag run, and that's exactly what happened already here between Ross Harlow and Alexander Muscarella. They'll lead us up at the front, still by a decent margin over Steven Stepien. Here comes Muscarella, crossover to the inside, and quick move made for the Lowe's Chevrolet. Alex Muscarella takes the lead 5 laps in from Bristol. Some of that good racing at the front. Single files out as everybody in the mid-pack tries to decide where their destiny is going to take them in this early portion of the race. And as we get down to green flag racing here from the Last Great Coliseum, let's turn you in on our SK Sim Racing race analysis for tonight. We have got 300 laps and just about 160 miles, and it's going to go by very fast if we don't have a lot of yellow flags this evening. Bristol is a very quick racetrack, and it is very short, only a half mile here in Bristol, Tennessee, so the lap time's at about 15.2 seconds right now between those fastest drivers at the front of the field. We'll go 75 laps for the end of stage number 1. We'll take another 75 before we reach the end of stage 2, which will come our way at exactly the halfway mark of the race at lap 150. And then by the end, we'll have 150 more laps to bring us to that 300 lap, 160 mile distance from the Last Great Coliseum. So it is going to be very quick. A lot of drivers potentially going to be looking for that track position early, and it'll be very important here at a track that was recently refreshed on the iRacing service, has that brand new look to replicate what it looks like in 2025 action. We've had a pretty old scan of the Bristol Motor Speedway before then, but really good to see the artwork team at iRacing put in and make a really good looking Bristol Motor Speedway in sim. Here's a look on board from Stephen Harlow running P5. And right now trying to hold off that hard-charging Cedric Hunter, that bright pink Hello Kitty Toyota Camry as part of that Category 5 esports team. So far, those two separated by only 2 car lengths. And tagging along Eric Schaefer, the Hampton, Virginia native, along for the ride as here comes the 3 car to the inside. Good battles inside the top 15. Behind this group is where you're going to find the most side-by-side action. Remember, Jason Anderson, a bit of a hiccup there in the opening 2 laps of this race. He has since picked things up, and despite being as far back as 16th in that race from that mistake, he has easily jumped back +7 up to P9. That Taco Bell Chevrolet rolling in, and good job so far to recover from the early mishap there. And almost seemed like with this next-gen update, we're seeing a lot of those mistakes come about from even many experienced drivers in the field. As soon as we got that aero and tire update with the next-gen car a couple of weeks ago, it really reset the field. Everybody had to relearn this race car and try all over again to manage the quirks and the aero features of the Chevrolets, the Toyotas, and of course the Ford Mustangs. And it seems like for now, everyone's got a pretty good grip on what exactly is going down, but almost felt like either a combination of cold tires, maybe a bit of that aero packing feature that we've seen when a car is right to the inside, about a car length or less behind. We've seen that front driver get loose very often, and part of the cautions that came out early in that Texas Motor Speedway race, specifically that first yellow between Sean Kalis and James Kunkel as they hit the outside wall. Well, there's the Columbus, Mississippi native of Lawson Peel. No surprise that he's already made progress early in this race, as he is the typical non-qualifier. Some very unusual situation that you'll see from a driver in this series, but it has definitely worked out in his favor. A whopping 7 wins for the Mississippi driver in search of his first ever Droppin the Hammah Cup Series title, and that includes back-to-back wins for the first time this season that we've ever seen a driver go back-to-back, although it's been very much close to happening between guys like Lawson Peel and even the rookie, Stephen Maggio, who's been so strong throughout his short but very successful Droppin the Hammah Cup Series campaign. And that includes the road course win at Watkins Glen and then that Texas victory that easily sealed him into the round of 8. He'll be in that semifinal round once we go on to Kansas Motor Speedway later on this season. A track that Lawson desperately likes, a track that he's very good at, so probably another place where he can find himself locked in to the championship 4 at Homestead Miami Speedway. So all clean and green through the first 23. There's Cedric Hunter on the inside. Stephen Harlow loose off of turn 4. Possible door open there for the 45 car, but Hunter waves back and instead holds on to what track position he has. They were getting around the lap car. Kevin Roy, who's now 19th, is the first and only car a lap down in this race. And for Cedric Hunter, that breakthrough win came back at Charlotte Motor Speedway. It was a huge moment for the driver of the number 45, a guy that we've seen be so close to victory, specifically at the mile-and-a-half tracks, and he's coming off of 3 straight top 10 efforts after that victory from Concord, North Carolina. A 3rd place at Indianapolis, then that 3rd place at Watkins Glen, and then a top 10 to boot after starting 17th at Texas Motor Speedway. So for Hunter, it has been consistency at the right time, and that's kind of what you need if you're not winning races in a playoff format like this. He continues to settle back behind Stephen Harlow. This is so far our closest battle at the front of this field inside the top 10. So as they continue to fight, so far race lead still in the hands of Alexander Muscarella, leading by now 7 car lengths over his teammate Ross Harlow. And so far Droppin the Hammah doing a great job of putting themselves in the forefront of this center stage. Stempien right behind in 3rd. All 3 of those Droppin the Hammah Chevrolets running at the front of this field. 2 drivers already, guys who have been able to do well and step forward in these Droppin the Hammah Cup Series playoffs, specifically Ross Harlow, who picked up a win earlier on this season at the virtual New Hampshire Motor Speedway, and then Steven Stempien grabbing the win at the late stages of that Worldwide Technology race earlier on in the regular season. 2 drivers a part of that team who already have at least 1 win or more in 2025. Still waiting for Alexander Muscarella to get into that category of race winners so far this season, but looking good early on as he tries to search for a stage win. That will really help for Muscarella's campaign, one that has been very rocky at most from what we've seen from this 48 machine. And so far throughout the last several races, it's been a little tough, but it's also been very positive. 2 top 10s throughout the last 3 races. That includes Indianapolis and Watkins Glen, but not really the greatest effort at the virtual Texas Motor Speedway. Rolled off in 20th, and that's exactly where he ended up finishing for the Lowe's Cobalt car, a driver who in the Sunoco Cup Series at Texas in the playoffs got involved in a huge crash down the back straightaway several years ago, and that's almost about what hampered his pursuit at a championship then. But so far things looking good for right now as the battle for second seems to be heating up. Stempien already on the tail of his teammate in the 16 car. Great on-board shot from Stempien as he rolls around this half-miler at Bristol Motor Speedway. You'll see those several lines at play. The middle working there for Stempien, gets the outside of Ross Harlow. And for right now, Stempien has the upper hand, the nose in front, and he'll be able to take away second place. But great look at the differentiating lines here at Bristol. You'll see a lot of drivers cling to the inside of this racetrack where that yellow line sits. But, you know, Bristol in sim on iRacing has had a good history of treating those at the top very well. We've seen lots of guys take away lots of momentum from the 28 degrees you find at the top of the speedway. It is a progressively banked half-miler here at Bristol, so you'll find a lot of the differentiating degrees of banking from 4 degrees to 8 degrees on the straightaway, and then the lowest of 24 degrees to the highest of 28 when you're at the very top of the track in the middle of the corners. And for Stempien there, using that to his advantage, just trying to roll the middle little by little to see what he can do to get around his teammate and become the second lead change of this race. And the onboard look from Stempien. Calm and collected as only through 40 laps. They are already starting to catch their way the back end of the lap traffic I believe that is Craig Parks at the back of that, a driver who comes into this race only -4 to the cut line. The Talladega Super Speedway winner has struggled a bit throughout this postseason, but is still trying to stay afloat. The 42-year-old from Lansing, Michigan, is now in a fight with Jeff Gilmore, who's made his first several starts here in 2025 late in the going, and the 57 car rolls by the outside. Parks does have to be a little careful between those cars right in the rearview mirror, because as they grow bigger, it is going to be very hard to find yourself through on lead lap position if you fall a lap down or more here at Bristol. And it's already befallen Kevin Roy. It's befallen the 28 car of Casey Neiden, who I believe is on pit road right now. And indeed he is. The Dutch Bros Toyota Camry in on pit road, almost diagonally there to the inside wall on the pit lane. And he's already fallen 4 to 5 laps down as that continues to creep up throughout the final 31 here in the first stage. As we watch on with the race leader, good battle building inside the top 15. There's Richard Swavely, that red and black Hemlock Toyota Camry on the outside of the Myrtle Beach, South Carolinian. Brandon Banks with Zachary Hall right behind, Stephen Maggio in the background. A good 5-car breakaway here from about 11th on back. That's where you saw Jason Anderson move up to the front of the field. He was as high as 9th after that mistake in the opening several laps, but seems like the pace has dropped off as these tires wear down. And one thing that was of notice with the next-gen update, and something that was taken away by the drivers, is there's contact to the inside. Brandon Banks nearly sending that 92 car for a spill there off of what was turn number 2. And Stephen Maggio, Richard Swavely going to back off as they enter 3 and 4, and Anderson will separate. A lot of drivers talked about the level of separation. Texas Motor Speedway showed that really well in the sense that you get a long enough green flag run in, and between the dirty air in the middle of the corners, between the tires rearing down faster than they ever used to with these cars on iRacing, you have a lot of chances for drivers to pull away from each other. Those stronger guys who are better at saving tires, moving up to the front, and those who struggle, well, they're going to struggle even more. Their exacerbated nature of the race car just handling worse and worse over the course of the long green flag run. We've seen that happen a lot. After the new update, it has separated the great from those who still need a bit of work to do with this car and to really handle the quirks and natures of what this challenge is bringing to a lot of them across the iRacing platform. But that's where you're watching some of those mid-pack battles heat up, but those battles at the front, boy, they really seem to string out a ton, even though the battle for the lead right now, only about a car length between the 48 of Muscarella and, of course, that 88 car of Steven Stempien. Onboard look with the race leader, and the second place car is charging hard. Here comes Stempien looking to the inside. Right here, right now, the best place for defense on the outside of the racetrack. That's where Muscarella is rolling his car. We haven't seen him run the high side until now. As soon as he found his teammate get a little bit closer using that middle lane, it's where now the 48 is going to try and expand his range, use the outside lane to stave off that 88 car as he charges, and Stempien in search for what would be his 8th career stage win of 2025, the most of anyone we've seen this season. The only other driver to have at least more than 3 over the campaign is Stephen Maggio in his young season, the driver who's won several races so far. And Stempien has really shown himself as the de facto Martin Truex Jr. back in 2017 when stages were first implemented into NASCAR Cup Series racing. But as they step into lap traffic for the first time tonight, Jason Anderson has fallen through. He'll wave to the inside, let the leaders by through the top lane, and still between a car length. Stempien back down low. This time he's got a better entry. This time he's to the inside fully. He's got the quarter panel down to the inside. And Muscarella trying to play the defense, but the grip seems to be falling away. Stempien back down low. He'll have the chance to pull his nose in front. They'll remain even off of turn 4, back to turn 1. And now it's going to get more difficult to get this side-by-side action settled. And they'll single file out as soon as they get to that Alliance Truck Parts number 77. That's Kevin Roy. And then right in front. And there's a spinner. That's Craig Parks around to the outside wall. The pass almost complete on Jeff Gilmore. but they tangled together into the corner, and for the first time tonight, yellow flag thrown, 15 laps before stage 1 complete. Oh, and another hit. Brandon Banks, as soon as Craig Parks was coming down, a hard hit for the South Carolinian, and that will be huge implications for the playoffs. Brandon Banks coming into tonight plus 14 to the round of 12 cut line, and this is a huge blow as Parks was coming down the raceway. Teammates getting involved here on lap 61. Oh my. And it's Craig Parks, the first casualty to bring out the yellow flag as he got collected with Jeff Gilmore. We saw, again, the pass for position we saw between these two drivers. This is about for, I'd say, 17th on the racetrack. And as they get around Kevin Roy, there's minimal contact, and I don't know if Craig Parks just goes up or whether Gilmore comes down. But as they come to the corner, Gilmore's at the top of the speedway. And it looks like Craig Parks maybe just merged a little bit too high as Gilmore got the run off of the corner. And as they entered the banking, that's where they made the contact. Parks goes into the outside wall. That's not where the situation ends. He's rolling down the banking right now. Everyone's still going around under yellow. And that's where you'll see that PaulsCars.com Chevrolet come barreling through into his teammate. And that's suspension damage for not only Parks, but for Banks. 2 playoff drivers getting involved. And now they are both out of the evening. Only 63 laps in. A huge shunt for both of those guys who could have easily kept going. But maybe some miscommunication there. Parks perhaps thought he was clear. Banks was going a little bit too fast. And all of a sudden, it is a huge crash building up in the middle of the corner. And we'll be under the yellow flag for the first time tonight from Bristol Motor Speedway. So with that, Brandon Banks out of this race. Craig Parks out as well. And again, for those two drivers in very different scenarios, Banks seemed almost safe if he had a solid race this evening. A driver who's been known for his level of consistency and level to show up when things matter most. And then Craig Parks, who has survived this long in the postseason gauntlet, but now maybe even more at risk of being eliminated come 2 weeks from now at the virtual Darlington Raceway in virtual South Carolina, a track that is hometown to Brandon Banks. And unfortunately, 2 of the DBR Chevrolets taken out so early on, as we'll get the green flag here with about 11 laps to go in the opening stage of the race. Despite our race going as long as it did under green, didn't see anybody from the front runner group come down pit road. So we'll reset. Muscarella and Stepien outside and inside of row number 1. Green flag back in the air with 11 laps to go in stage 1. And a good jump for Muscarella. Stays ahead of the competition. Fight for 3rd place back to turn 1. Cedric Hunter on the outside of Ross Harlow. And another caution coming out all the way at the back. More trouble. And it's Jason Anderson. I believe Zachary Hall may have been involved in it. And a slow Richard Swavely back in 12th place. I think there might be damage there, but so far, so good. Everyone okay. I don't believe any significant damage, but there is that Taco Bell Chevrolet of Anderson. Started so well in tonight's race. Had that early hiccup, and it seems like there may have been some trouble right in front of this 92 car. So we'll take a look at how this all unfolded in front of Anderson. And I'm not sure what happened here. It seemed like there may have been some sideways action, but for the most part, as that yellow comes out, I'm not sure if there is any real problem here. So we'll get a look with Warren Kyle Keith, that Black Bass Pro Shops Toyota Camry. Then, oh, here it is, 3 wide, and contact with Kip easily sends Herb sideways. What a wonderful save, though, by the TOW Racing Chevrolet of Herb. And to the inside was Jeff Gilmore, and all of a sudden that seems to have brought out the yellow flag. That bit of sideways perpendicular action, but we will indeed be under the caution for just the 2nd time tonight here from Bristol Motor Speedway. Well, just like we've had throughout the course of this 2025 season, why don't we go for a quick onboard lap as we are under yellow for the 2nd time tonight. This is me trying to put a laps around here at Bristol Motor Speedway. Obviously, different conditions. It's a hotter track temperature than what it was or what it is right now here in sim with the nighttime conditions. But you want to roll the bottom very gingerly on the throttle as you try to exit the corner. This car can step out as it transitions through the banking, and then that high side that Alexander Muscarella was using so well to defend his race lead, just rolling through the top. You can get a ton of rotation in as the car slows down, and then as soon as you come off of turn 4, mash the gas pedal and try to get to the start-finish line as quickly as you can. That was my interpretation of a good lap here around Bristol Motor Speedway. That's one of the cool things about iRacing broadcasts, is that you can actually take it for yourself, a lap around each and every track with the same car and the same setup that these guys do in sim each and every week on Sundays, and only grows my level of respect for the skill level that these guys display each and every week. But also fun to learn the ins and outs of the new Speedway, particularly after that iRacing update that came out where they refreshed the surface of this car, or rather this track, but they also refreshed the artwork to make it look more like it is right now in real life. So we'll double up for the restart with about 5 laps to go in stage 1. It is going to be an absolute dash to the finish with Alexander Muscarella at the top end of row number 1, Steven Stepien on the inside trying to play defense. And then, of course, those drivers in row number 2 settling out, Ross Harlow and Cedric Hunter. They were fighting for third off the last restart. They'll be side by side once more. Back to the Echo Park restart zone, and a great getaway for the Lowe's Chevrolet of Alex Muscarella through turns 1 and 2. Ross Harlow trying to fight for second as they come to the back straightaway. And again, only 4 laps remain, now 3. And at the end of 75, we'll have a stage winner. As right behind, Harlow and Stepien continue to do battle. Stephen Harlow has stepped into 4th. Cedric Hunter has struggled down the inside lane, and they have invited Phoenix Raceway winner Eric Schaefer into the background for top 5. And now make it 3 wide. Schaefer almost through the middle, got peeked through, and had to back out right before he made contact. Lawson peeled to the inside. Final 2 in stage 1, with Ross Harlow about 2 car lengths behind. Harlow in search for what would be his 4th career stage victory. Final lap in stage 1 from Bristol. Last driver in the top 10 right now sits Kip Easley, again in a position where he has to hold off competition just to be in that position to get 1 point. Final charge in 3 and 4. Ross Harlow to the inside, but it will not matter. Stage 1, and for the first time, Alexander Muscarella wins a stage in the season. What a dash to the finish. The 3 teammates, 1, 2, 3, as they cross the line for points. Eric Schaefer is able to steal the spotlight, take away 4th. Stephen Harlow back in 5th. And then Peel, Hunter, Maggio, Justin Erb, and Kip Easley round out the top 10. Notably missing from points contention, Warren Kyle Keith, playoff driver who came into tonight's race at a pretty healthy 13-point margin. Back to the round of 12 cut line, he will end up 11th, and he will miss out on stage points after 75 laps. So field coming down pit road. Alexander Muscarella will lead them in. There is, of course, Harlow, Stepien, the other Harlow, and Steven. Lawson peeled down. I believe Eric Schaefer has stayed out. So for the first time tonight, we have a driver looking to extend the distance on the set of Goodyear Eagles. And Schaefer, despite not coming down pit road throughout the most segment of this race, he did come down pit road about 16 laps ago. So there were guys under one of the most recent yellows to come down pit road. And off of pit road this time by, Ross Harlow was able to take away the net race lead off of the lane. But they will be about 4th on back, as Eric Schaefer, who comes away with 16 laps on his set of Goodyear Eagles, will take away the race lead for the first time tonight. 10 laps in the run is Warren Kyle Keith, so perhaps that's why he missed out on some stage points, gave up the track position to come down pit road, and then, of course, had to try and scrap his way through the top 10 that ultimately was not successful. Ross Harlow, of course, 4th. He will be the freshest tire car, and then Richard Swavely trying to extend his invitation to go to the front of the field. He will be 10 laps deep into his green flag stint, as will be under yellow here from Bristol Motor Speedway. So a great opening stage for Alexander Muscarella, able to capture his first career stage victory. We'll see if we can talk with Alex as we get ready for the restart. Alex, you got a copy?
Yeah, I got you guys.
All right, Alex. Well, for the first time this season, it is a stage win. Obviously, must feel good to get some of those extra points based on your playoff situation going into tonight. But walk us through how this car feels and what the race has felt like from your point of view so far.
Car was a bit goofy. I don't really know how to explain it, honestly. I really wish I had a better answer than that, but it just feels kind of goofy. The good thing is it does change how it handles depending on how you're driving it a little bit, but just weird.
Seems to be a proper description of this next-gen car, like in general, after the update. But, Alex, we appreciate the time. Know it's a quick getaway round for caution here at Bristol, so we'll let you get ready for the restart. Best of luck.
Thank you, guys.
So that is Alex Muscarello, first career stage victory coming here from Bristol Motor Speedway, as Eric Schaefer and Warren Kyle Keith will take the field through the Echo Park restart zone. Green flag back in the air for stage 2, and a great jump for Schaefer. A poor start for Warren Kyle Keith, playing defense off turn 2. And now the top 3 get away as they complete the first lap off of the stage 2 start. And here comes Ross Harlow charging to the outside. He's got his nose up there. To the outside wall he'll go in the middle of the banking, trying to get second place off of turn 4. And now's where the 16 can try and charge. As he's loose in the middle of the corner, he'll wrestle the car off of turn 2 and he saves it. The outside wall may have given him the extra tap to keep that car afloat, but he'll give up second, he'll give up third, and his teammate Steven Sneppian rolls by to take away a top 3. That was near catastrophic for the 16 car of Harlow. As we get a look on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, just how hard he's had to work, but rolling that high side, you put so much throttle in on cold tires, and this car will step out considerably. Harlow much more stable down the inside of the racetrack as they try and charge for those 2 cars on the older set of Goodyear Eagles. Good look at how patient you got to be on the throttle to try and mash it off of either turn 2 or turn 4. And just how quick these laps get ticked down here at Bristol Motor Speedway. We've heard from real-life NASCAR Cup Series drivers that it gets a bit disorienting when you're driving around this half-miler because you go around it so fast, and especially with these cars, they have so much downforce. It takes a little while to kind of understand where you are. Caution flag again, and this time Steven Maggio among those involved. I believe Richard Swavely may have also had a piece. Maggio, the 3-time winner this season, most recently coming at the Brickyard at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway back in early June is when he got that victory. He's the heart of this accident here off of what is one of the corners there with Richard Swavely involved. So let's get a moment and see how this all unfolded and dial up the replay machine. So this is a battle inside the top 15. That's Swavely on the inside, Maggio up top. And business as usual as they're coming through turn 1. There's Cedric Hunter up the road. Maggio catches the wall, and that's exactly where his car steps out. Nowhere for Swavely to go. Justin Erb getting a piece of that. Jeff Gilmore getting some front-end nose damage. And a rare mistake for Maggio. Very experienced driver, but the rear tires just lit up. And the car had nowhere to go. Let's get the onboard look from the 97 car. So getting the outside on Swavely. Touch of the wall here. And the throttle in, that car through the bumps just cannot keep the grip down. And Swavely getting involved. Not as much damage to either of the cars that are in it. Seems like a little dent here and there, but for the most part, they are involved. There's Maggio on pit road now, so he'll get whatever damage is assessed to his number 97 Brent Chevrolet. He'll be back on pit road, back onto the racetrack, rather, off of pit road, as Steven Harlow may have picked up some right front damage. We saw that off of the end of stage 1, where the Project Hopner Chevrolet had to come in the middle of the group through the top 5, and you saw the dent heavy there on the right front of that race car. And Bristol, thankfully, is not one of those tracks where aerodynamic disadvantages are so big when you have damage like that. You can very well survive and still be fast here at Bristol because the speeds are low and you're not necessarily relying on the aerodynamic wake of the race car. But for Harlow, that will desperately set him back. He'll be back in 15th. He'll be the first car that is at mercy of being lapped down or more. As the update right behind on the DNF list, Brandon Banks and Craig Parks, of course, with that big crash to bring out our first yellow of the night right before stage 1 came to an end. They are both 30 and 32 laps down, respectively, in 16th and 17th. Kevin Roy is 31 laps down, but his car is still on track, and for Casey Neiden, he is 51 laps down and counting, back in 19th place. So we'll get another green flag restart, this time with Schaefer in command. And for the second straight time, Warren Kyle Keith cannot anticipate the jump from the Hampton, Virginia native. Keith will give away second. Harlow surges by from the outside lane. And now it's a moment of firing for the 16 car. Great run off turn 4. He'll peek to the inside. Battle for the race lead at lap 92. And Harlow with all that extra grip. It is a 16-lap difference on tires in favor of the Till Valhalla Project Chevrolet, but the defense continues to mount for the 3 car of Schaefer. Maintains the high side. Keith will get invited back in the mix as they're nearly 3 wide, back in for 5th. And this is where, if you're Ross Harlow, you got to be so patient behind the wheel of your car, because you know you have the tire edge, you know you have the advantage, but it's hard to roll the inside and put in that throttle earlier than the car up top that uses all that momentum from the progressive banking. And now Harlow's going to follow that 3 car up there. Our Charlie Bauer Photography onboard camera gives us a great look at the battle for the lead. Schaefer is loose off of turn number 2, I believe it was, or turn 4, and he'll be all the way at the back. Do we get a yellow flag? And it looks like Schaefer is able to save it. I'm not sure whether he had hits to the inside wall, but it looks like there is damage on the left front of his car. As now the battle for second heats up off of turn 4. At Stempien at the inside, Keith on the outside as they try to catch up to the race leader. And they have pulled away by more than a second over Alex Muscarella back and forth. Keith starting to find his groove with 10-lap older tires than the rest of these guys around him. And we've seen with this next-gen car, even with the update, old tires aren't necessarily as big of a deficit as you'd expect before that update came out. So even though Warren Kyle Keith has 10-lap older tires, it's hard to pass on the inside, so there's going to be more wear on the right front tire. And for Keith, he's able to hold his ground, the St. Augustine, Florida native, who was very close to winning races so far this season, and has kept his name nicely in the playoffs after finishing second last week at the Virtual Texas Motor Speedway from starting 4th, and then a 16th place effort in our first and only road course race of the playoffs at Watkins Glen. And right now, as he tries to charge on the race leader, it is still a car length between these 2 cars, as we're about 49 laps away from the end of stage 2. The onboard look from the 78 car. And he's there. Wonderful roll through the middle of 3 and 4. Keith down to the inside for the lead. But the question is, how long will it last with the teammates up top? And now's where the help comes in. Filling that space is the 88 car of Steven Stempien, that black and green Chevrolet in the background from 3rd. As Keith dials up the inside again, he's trying to force Harlow as low as it can go, but so far it will not work. And Harlow again, tap of the outside wall. Keith staying up high. Gridlocked for the race lead, back to turn 1. And it's a very interesting strategy by the Tracker Boats Toyota Camry, just trying to force Harlow as high as possible so that he cannot get the arc down that we've seen many drivers implement from the very top of the banking. Keith will steal away the moment for the second, and right now Stempien is wondering where I'm going to go in this moment. Keith going to send it into the inside. He's got the lead. Harlow up top will fight back, and again we're going to stay side by side. This battle not giving up. And all that is done is invite 3rd on back. There's Alex Muscarella in the background. Lawson Peel settling into 4th. Cedric Hunter has stepped into top 5 territory. And now is where they can start making their move by saving their tires. Now Muscarella puts up the inside charge. Stepien wants to cross over for second. He'll dive underneath the 78 machine. Keith trying to play as much defense as possible, but Stepien may have the nose forward. He might just be clear entering the corner, but they'll stay side by side for now off of turn 2. Oh, and Stepien's loose off the corner. He'll save it as soon as they come off of turn 4. Well, that's the second time in a row we've seen a driver down low step out from the rear tires of the race car. And in a moment's notice, Stepien goes from second to P6. And now things finally settle out in the battle for the top spot as Harlow leads, Keith right behind, and Muscarella trying to fend out for third. As here comes Lawson Peel, started 14th in this race without a qualifying time. All of a sudden, back in stage 2 is where he'll make up his ground with about 39 to go in the second stage of this race, to which we've seen mostly green. A lot of this has come down to the longer green flag stretches. Look at the lunge into the corner by Lawson Peel. Had a great run off of the corner. That was turn 2. And now turn 4 is what Peel will have to reset. Got loose as soon as they entered what was going to be turn 1. And here comes Cedric Hunter. Fight for the outside for 4th. So it's Harlow, Keith, Muscarella, Hunter, and Peel, the current running top 5, as Stepien settles in 6th, just trying to regain all that ground lost. Kip easily runs 7th. Remember, he got 10th, and the final point available for stage racing here in the opening stage of the race, a lap 75. And then Jason Anderson has recovered nicely to 8th. Richard Swavely back in 9th. And Stephen Harlow, that Project Hopner Chevrolet, we saw him pick up some damage repair off of the last yellow where he was on his stall for a little while. He's back in 10th. And things continue to accordion at the front of this field. In comes Cedric Hunter, that Hello Kitty Toyota Camry, the one of 2 Category 5 Esports Toyota Camrys in this race tonight, alongside Zachary Hall, who finished runner-up in Indianapolis not that long ago. And Hunter now to the inside of Muscarella's Lowe's Cobalt Chevrolet, as they reignite the battle for what is 3rd place on the racetrack. Peel and Stepien may start to go side by side, and that's going to be for what is going to be 5th on the racetrack right now. And this is the nature of the game. Some of what we saw in the mid-pack in the early portion of stage 1. A lot of separation throughout the first 5 or so cars in the field, but as soon as you got 10th on back, that's where you saw the most fireworks. And as soon as the battle for the lead opened up between Eric Schaefer and Ross Harlow, that's where they just continued to migrate further back and back from 2nd to 3rd. Now it's going to be for 4th, potentially for 5th if they allow the 7th place car all the way up into this mix, although the gap is pretty hefty right now. But as Cedric Hunter continues to man the inside, so far it is not to be a favor of the 45 car as Lawson Peel continues to follow in the draft. Stepien not too far behind either. All 6 of these cars separated by 9/10 of a second as they come off of these corners with about 30 to go in stage 2. And it is just phenomenal racing we're watching here from Bristol. And out of your top 6, 4 of them with race wins in 2025. Keith and Muscarella, the only 2 that haven't been able to strike gold yet. And if they do right now, it would be a huge win for either of them. Contact between the drivers in 2nd place, and a wonderful save by Alex Muscarella. Holds on to the race car. He'll lose all the track position, but perhaps he'll like that better than a wrecked race car at this juncture of the race. As Lawson Peel mans the inside, took the real estate, now took advantage. And he'll fight to the inside of Stepien in the battle for 3rd. This continues to improve. Now Stepien, a phenomenal run off the banking. He'll slice down to the inside with a chance to take away 2nd place from Keith. And once again, this Bath Pro Shops Camry has been under fire throughout the entirety of this run, and so far not going to give it up. Driver who's expressed to me before many times in this series that the win is coming. He just doesn't know when. And he's been so heartbroken throughout many a race in which he's been close, he's been fast, but he hasn't been able to find that missing puzzle piece to get at least 1 checkered flag in 2025. And now contact between the drivers for 2nd. Spinning is Warren Kyle Keith. up the banking in the corner, and the yellow flag comes out. The heartbreak ensues for Keith this time. Oh, and almost contact. Jeff Gilmore getting right into the mix. It almost looked like Craig Parks and Brandon Banks all over again. And I'm sure it's not a happy camper, Warren Kyle Keith, as Stempien recovers as he made that quarter panel contact with the 78, as we'll get this caution flag with about 32 laps to go in the second stage of this race. They are already hitting pit road with Kip Easley, Jason Anderson, and the lot right behind. We'll see what happened with the group of drivers as they were coming off to the straightaway. And there was that initial contact between the two cars. So this is the good battle we were watching inside the top three. This was for second place. And there's Stempien down low. He had been adamant at holding down the fort at the yellow line of the racetrack. Keith, of course, helpful at the top with Lawson Peel and Cedric Hunter in tow, but really not helpful at all in the battle for the runner-up spot. And it's right about here, coming off the banking in turn 2. They make the contact. Keith goes sideways. Stempien in the attempt to save it goes sliding. And I'm not sure if he made any other contact. I think it was just flat spotting of the tires. And then, of course, the biggest blow dealt to the St. Augustine, Florida native who went perpendicular. Jeff Gilmore down the racetrack as the 78 car was rolling down the banking. And remember, Keith had been on an older set of Goodyear Eagles. He had pitted earlier in the race, so he was holding on to the position with the oldest set of tires in the top 5, because Richard Swavely, Eric Schaefer, they had been both kind of moved away from the conversation. Schaefer getting loose out of a corner, which set him further back, and then Richard Swavely just not holding on to his car. He fell back to 11th place. And with all of that, field comes down pit road from 5th on back, so that will hand the lead to Lawson Peel for the first time tonight. So the driver who's been the most dominant in 2025 will see another chance to lead this race and win at the front of the field. So let's see if we can get a bit of the situational analysis from Steven Stempien. I believe we'll go 1 to green, so perhaps we'll talk to Stempien a little bit later on in the show if we can, and if we get another yellow flag, because these caution flags, these caution periods really go by quickly here at Bristol Motor Speedway, and that's something that iRacing really hasn't played around with. They've done so at the bigger tracks to limit the amount of time under yellow, but because these laps come by so quickly, it's only about 47 seconds to come around under caution here at Bristol Motor Speedway, at which a lot of the normal laps at bigger super speedways go by at about 50 to 55 seconds. We'll be ready for the green flag at the Echo Park restart zone, and the field in the hands of the 7-time winner, Lawson Peel. Chases back to turn 1. He's got the clearance. Cedric Hunter back in 2nd, and a race-high 3rd. Fight now between Muscarella and Maggio back into turn 3. And now is where Stempien's going to try to mount his comeback from P5. He'll lurk the inside on the Branch Chevrolet of Maggio. Behind them, fight for position number 8. And now 7th place, Jason Anderson, Kip Easley going at it. And the former race leader as Ross Harlow tries to slice through the field from P6. This is where we've seen the bulk of the action happen at the front, and specifically in the front 5. And it's all about running that high side to play all of the defense to stay ahead of the competition. And, you know, we've seen the longer runs play to those drivers on the inside who save their right front tire, but if you're willing to carve off a bit of that right rear to gain some speed, and you can definitely do so very well here at Bristol. But so far, all in the hands of Steven Stempien, trying to reel away 2nd, as Lawson Peel remains ahead by at least a car length back into the corner. That's turn 3. Great look on board, our Charlie Byer Photography onboard camera with Cedric Hunter as he tries to hold off Stempien and trying to attack on Peel. It's a bit of an Oreo situation, right? You're in the middle of this sandwich between playing offense on the leader and then just trying to keep that car behind you in the rearview mirror. And while Stempien has been loyal to the bottom, Hunter has been remaining up top, whether it be by necessity or by force. The 45 car at a race high of P2. And now there's Stempien, that nose clinging to the inside. Nowhere for Hunter to go, but at the top of the banking, he'll get the nose on the top of Lawson Peel for a second. But the DTH Chevrolet of Stempien going to remain on the inside with Ross Harlow trying to take away 3rd. And look how much things have cleaned up between these front five. A race high fifth now for Kip Easley, the Nixa, Missouri native, trying to put his name in the conversation after just getting 1 point in stage 1. Will get way more and possibly a stage victory if he can hold on and try and take away the position, but it is gridlocked for 2 rows deep in the final 9 of stage 2. Here comes to the inside, Steven Stepien. He'll clear. Steven Stepien to the race lead from the last great Coliseum. And now to the bottom alley is Ross Harlow. And Peel with a half block. The Tilvalhalla Project Chevrolet starting to find his way through. And remember, he had led a bulk of this second stage before that caution came out. As the battle for 6th place heating up, Muscarella fending off Swavely, Maggio, Stephen Harlow back in 9th. And then Warren Kyle Keith now getting around Harlow, what is for 9th place. And the final 2 available spots to get points in the stage. It is a 5-car breakaway starting up here with Swavely and Muscarella back to the corner. And the closest we're watching this fight, as the battle for the lead has thinned out, it's now half a second between Stempien's 88 car and the 16 of Harlow. The 2 teammates trying to go 1-2 again in the stage. And Muscarella a bit too far back to make an effort. As Keith dials the outside, he tries to steal more positions away. Hunter and easily going at it for 4th place. As to the final 4 laps of the second stage tonight, Steven Stepien trying to right his wrongs from the first stage and get all the points available. He has been the dominant car for stage wins so far in 2025, and it's helped him create a gap that so far is pretty well for him right now. Plus 24 to the round of 12 cut line going into tonight's race from Bristol after a solid outing at Texas just last week. And there's a car to the inside, stalled. It's Jason Anderson, but so far no yellow flag. He picks back up his Chevrolet. And I'm surprised we did not see the yellow come out from that. That is underneath the racing line, but usually on iRacing that will cause the yellow, but regardless, we will stay green. Stepien ahead by 3/10 of a second. White flag in the air for the second stage here from Bristol. And after a contentious second stage, after the most recent yellow, Stepien surges ahead. And for the 8th time, Steven Stepien is a stage winner. As the field comes around, Kip Easley again placed in the top 10 in that final position for that 1 sacred point. He was in the battle for 5th, by the way, about 2 to 3 laps ago. So there may have been a mistake there for the Scenic Chevrolet, but nonetheless, he will at least get a point for his efforts. And Steven Stepien walks away with his 8th career stage victory of the season in search for his 2nd career victory after winning Gateway earlier on in the campaign, as he will bring the field down pit road. And just as quickly as we get that yellow is just as fast as we gather the field to be behind the iRacing official pace car for some trips down to some service. So here at Bristol, we have this unique feature of the racetrack to which pit road is not only on one end of the speedway where the start-finish line is, it is on both ends of the speedway. So you'll have often leagues deciding between dual pit roads and single pit roads, as there's a fight off pit road nearly 3 wide, as I believe Stepien might have got it, nearly pinched his teammate Harlow into the tire barrels, but a good job by Stepien to keep the race lead as Eric Schaefer and Jeff Gilmore appear to have stayed out behind the iRacing official pace car. But it looks like here it is a situation of single or dual pit roads between the drivers. That means that if it's dual pit roads, if you pit on the back straightaway, you can just exit off of what is going to be, I believe it is turn 2, and then entering turns 3 and 4. But if it's the other way around, you're pitting on the front straightaway, you can exit off of turn 1 instead of having to go all the way around the speedway, to which single pit roads have you go all the way around, and it's a blue line that extends across the entire speedway. I think they have elected for dual pit roads here at Bristol, and Steven Stepien will pick up the iRacing official pace car with Ross Harlow in front. So it appears they did consider Ross Harlow the eventual race winner off of pit road, And so Stempien, the stage winner, will have to settle for what is going to be the runner-up spot when we get back to the green flag restart. So let's join the stage winner right now, Steven Stempien. You got a copy with us?
And it's good to have you back, buddy.
All right, well, good to talk to you once again. It's been a good 2 weeks off, and I'm glad to be back with you guys. Quick thoughts here on the stage win. You've got 8 so far in 2025. You got a real fast race car right now from Bristol.
Yeah, just can't close the door this season. This race has been a handful too. Had my handfuls, had some good saves, and just trying to stay up front, man. Track position's key, and just trying to work the clean air. But we'll see what the next 150 laps or so hold here.
Well, Steven, a fantastic stage 2 effort. Best of luck on the restart.
Thanks, buddy.
So a quick talk there with Steven Stempien, who's going to join back with his team. He'll try and resurface at the front of this field. Green flag back in the air, and it's a sluggish start for the 88 machine. Ross Harlow sweeps away the top spot, and Cedric Hunter going to try to fight for P2 off of the second corner. When we talk about rear tire spin, cold tires for all these cars at the front of the field, and Stempien got the worst end of it. He gives away second. He'll give away third. The Napa Auto Care Chevrolet. Lawson Peel in the midst of all that takes away the third spot as there's near contact back for 6th place as Kip Easley tries to put himself in the middle of nearly 3 wide. And now it's all going to be on the fight for the race lead and what Stempien can do to try and recover from his mistake there off of the restart. And with Warren Kyle Keith getting back to the rear bumper of this Droppin the Hammah Chevrolet, not sure if there will be any negativity amongst those two, but it looks like a clear and simple pass. And Keith will be able to steal away the 4th spot as he comes into turn again. And he'll try to recover here off of turn 2, get to the inside of Lawson Peel. And we've seen that typical Bristol bump and run for drivers at the front, specifically those in the old Bristol days in the NASCAR Cup Series. We haven't really seen that as much in the modern day era of NASCAR, but with the Bristol Motor Speedway in real life having that inside so strong, they put the PJ1 at the bottom end of the track, and it makes that bottom line so very much dominant. With the tire wear we've seen there, we've seen that bottom lane become so successful and probably needing a bump and run to be able to sweep on by, but with our onboard look from Warren Kyle Keith doing a great job at holding down the 4th. He'll try and take away 3rd as Cedric Hunter slowly creeps in and creeps into the fight for the race lead that may be up for auction very, very soon. So a lot of drivers in this field tonight. A total of 19 rolled off on the green flag here from the last great Coliseum. One notable name missing from the entry list is Chris Pogar, the co-owner of this Droppin the Hammah Cup Series. And he told us earlier on in this race, earlier on in the evening or the afternoon hours right before we got the green flag, he said that he was not able to make it tonight because they had to put down the cat yesterday. And the wife has been in an absolute wreck. So we give our thoughts and prayers to Pogar and his family as they deal with the loss of their cat. It's never easy to lose a pet, a very dear member of the household, no matter how you look at it. And so Chris told us to put on a great show tonight. I think he'll be very proud to see what the drivers have put on so far because we've seen great battles, and we hope that Pogar and the family are doing all right. And our thoughts are with them as we hope he can come back with us in 2 weeks' time from the virtual Darlington Raceway. So just wanted to give that message out. Of course, our hearts with the co-owner, Chris Pogar, one of the main guys that put together this deal with the KBueno Racing Network to have us broadcast their races this year for the inaugural Droppin the Hammah Cup Series season, with a lot of these guys coming from the now defunct Sunoco Cup Series campaign that ended about a year or so ago. You know, we are so grateful to be able to cover this series, and with the kindness that Stempien and Pogar have in their hearts, and with the level of support they've given us at the KBueno Racing Network, we definitely appreciate all of that. And again, our thoughts more than just with the loss today for Chris Pogar, as Warren Kyle Keith wrestles his race car off of turn 2, had a tap of the outside wall, and he'll give up some time in his inevitable charge to the race leader, Ross Harlow. But again, just want to give our sentiment, our love to both Chris Pogar and Steven Stempien for not only putting this series together, but for all of their support to us at the KBueno Racing Network. So with 30 laps to go, until 100 laps to go here from Bristol, Tennessee, fight for the race lead is very much still on. We haven't really seen the guy at the front separate as much from the group of drivers as maybe we thought they would, given this next-gen update but you see just how far into the corner Warren Kyle Keith is sending his car. And he's not on fresh tires, by the way. He's on the same set of Goodyear Eagles that the race leader is on right now. They are crossing the line for 20 laps into their green flag stint, and Keith is lunging into the corner. He nearly gave the bumper to the 16 car as they came into the middle of the apex. Oh, again, we haven't really seen that leader stretch out a big of a gap as what we saw from the first stage of the race before the inevitable first yellow came out between Craig Parks and Brandon Banks. But it's brought us great racing. Still 2 car lengths between your front 2 runners, Cedric Hunter, who just about had a shot at the race lead early on in the race, is going to be back in 3rd. The Canadian sitting on the podium with Lawson Peel right behind in 4th. Steven Stepien hasn't really recovered that much, but he's been able to hold on to top 5 territory. And then that's where things really crunch up for those 6 on back, starting with Alexander Muscarella, the Stage 1 winner, and then Kip Easley, Justin Erb, Zachary Hall, and Richard Swavely for the rest of the current running top 10. And we haven't really talked much about the Newport, North Carolina native of Zachary Hall. That's because it's been a bit of a struggle for the 23 car tonight. Rolled off from what is the position tonight of P5. So it was a really good start for Hall as he came into this race from Bristol, but so far it really hasn't been the standout performance from the freaky fast Toyota Camry, who showed us 2 straight runner-ups between Indianapolis and then on the road course at Watkins Glen. Fell short to the inevitable race leader, of course, and the race winner then, Lawson Peel. But then it was a bit of a struggle. Started 18th at Texas Motor Speedway and only made his way to 11th at the checkered flag of that event. And for Hall, who comes into this race in a pretty risky scenario, only 4 spots, 4 points above the cut line in the round of 12 going into this race. And as we step into Darlington, hasn't been a standout performance for the 23 of Hall, but as long as he can get a consistent run, given the troubles of guys like Craig Parks, who's out of this race, you know, Alex Muscarella got the points, so maybe there's a bigger fight there, but as long as he can stay ahead of Justin Erb and Richard Swavely, who will start to do battle here for 9th, a couple car lengths behind this car here, you know, we'll see basically Hall either in a near situation or maybe just a little bit above that cut line as we head into the track 2 tough to tame. And Hall is loose there off of turn 2, had to stay the race car from trouble. And Richard Swavely gets the outside here, so that spot will be lost in the battle for 8th. And another look on board from Harlow as he continues to see at Bass Pro Shops Toyota Camry remain large in the rearview mirror. It has been very fun to watch these two kind of go at it. Different ways of running here at Bristol. And you got to question just how long the tires will last for Keith until things start to fall away, specifically on that right front. We've seen him send that car hard into the apex. And for the early portion of the run, very easy to be able to rotate the car and kind of trail brake into the corner so that you can find a bit of that extra turn, that bite entering the exit, and plant that throttle just a little bit sooner. We're not seeing as big of a send into the corner from Keith now. He's been more of a leveled entry. But he remains picking up speed at the apex, although Harlow has been able to find that bit of an edge at the exit of the speedway, and they're both running that very top lane, so you got to wonder whether those right rear tires are going to start to scream a little more over a long green flag run. And with our SK Sim Racing race analysis, we told you that we go 150 laps to the end of this race at lap 300 at the mile marker of 160 miles in this race from Bristol. And that's exactly halfway from first 2 stages and then the 150 laps, to which, you know, here in this series with the 100% fuel tank that we have in the race cars for everybody in the series, it is basically, I believe you can make it about to the end with a decent pit stop. And from what we usually see in stage breaks, you know, you cut in the several laps that will start the next stage, and then you just kind of go green flag racing from there. And maybe that difference could be enough to where the drivers are either very close to making it on fuel or they can make it all the way. The real detriment is going to be the tire wear and how much that will affect the cars over the course of the run, because you put in 150 laps and maybe 135 laps on a set of Goodyear Eagles, they are going to be out cold. And they're not going to be cold at all, but they're going to be knocked out in a sense, proverbially speaking, as Keith gets the inside there on Ross Harlow. Failed attempt at the fight for what is the race lead right now, as we are 10 laps away from the 100 to go marker from Bristol, Tennessee. How about the fight from 4th on back? This is the Methuen, Massachusetts native, Steven Stempien, the winner from Gateway earlier on this year. And then Cedric Hunter, Alex Muscarella, and then that aforementioned Zachary Hall running in 7th. And we've seen Hunter fall off specifically over this long green flag stretch. We saw him give up away 3rd from Lawson Peel, who stepped away. And then Hunter lost 4th, and now 5th and 6th given away for the Hello Kitty Toyota Camry. So something must be desperately wrong tire wear-wise for the 45 car. And we haven't really seen him run that high side like we've seen a lot of other drivers do. And, you know, the idea earlier on in the sim before the next gen update was that you run the outside a little bit too much and your tire's going to be gone by the end of the run. You really want to run the bottom lane here at Bristol just to be able to preserve the right front tire and then just outlast the others as the run progresses. But it's almost felt like no matter what line you choose, the tire wear, it just decides among the driving style. Doesn't matter what lane you decide to use here at Bristol, because we've seen Hunter be so faithful to the bottom, but all that speed loss you've seen over the last 15 to 20 laps of this race have come from that tire wear. But you see guys like Alex Muscarella who run the wall, Ross Harlow, Warren Kyle Keith, who've been ripping the fence this entire green flag stretch. They haven't really lost a lot of time. So you think of what could possibly be the mindset, be the scenario behind the wheel between these drivers. And it's been fun to watch, though, so far. And it's still about 2 car lengths between the leaders. No real change in hands, though. Keith has not been able to find that breakthrough moment to get into that clean air and get around that Till Valhalla Project Chevrolet. And for now, this seems to be the biggest gap that we've seen between those 2 cars as they continue to strike and kiss that outside safer barrier. They've gotten closer and closer with every passing lap, and it appears now they're kind of comfortable with smacking it a little more. So Keith about a car length back. He'll stay in line. And they are just about 2.3 seconds ahead of the 3rd place machine in Lawson Peel, who's going to come away with possibly another chance to come out a winner race here in this series and go 3 in a row, something that has been unprecedented, something that we haven't seen yet. We didn't even see 2 in a row from even a successful early start to the year for the Columbus, Mississippi driver. And Ross Harlow in search for what will be his 2nd career victory in this series, and 2nd at a short track, but he slips up on the outside of the track. He hit the outside wall, he bobbled a little bit, and the first lead change in a while comes at lap 202. Warren Kyle Keith, first time he's in the lead from Bristol. And while you're looking for the breakthrough moment, well, there it is. As Warren Kyle Keith steps up to the front, and now it's all about how that 16 car will respond, and he responds immediately by going into the clean air on the inside of the racetrack. Again, we mentioned the right rear tire wearing down when you run the boards, and for Harlow, it snapped, and it snapped in a very big hurry. He got the outside wall, and the car slipped out, and then that's exactly where Keith was able to use that lost momentum from Harlow to gain the spot and look to the inside. So it's almost whether there would be a breaking point for the Bass Pro Shops Toyota Camry. And now since Harlow runs the bottom, how much is he going to nurse his Chevrolet through the final 95 laps of this race, and whether we'll see any green flag pit stops until the end. So it's Keith, Harlow, Peel, Stempien, and Muscarella, the current running top 5. You're watching the now fight for 10th place on the racetrack. And Stephen Harlow in the Project Hopner Chevrolet. And then Kip Easley, of course, in that 8 machine. And a solid night for Stephen Harlow, given the circumstances so far, as he picked up that right front damage. Didn't really have enough time to fix that car fully. I'd imagine it's some of that optional repair that you can have behind the wheel of the race car. And when you're on pit road, you can spend that time repairing it. But a lot of times you really don't want to spend that time here at Bristol, given how fast the laps tick down, and of course on pit road you're going to lose a ton of track position. So Harlow trying to preserve the points positions that will pay out, and so far a solid run through this race despite all of the adversity that he's been able to face so far. And you know, given the situation with Kip Easley, he's been able to pull away nicely with Steven Maggio and Eric Schaefer now pulling up into the ground from 12th and 13th. So despite all odds, the 11 car has been able to survive and still chances to gain track position now that he's in touch with Richard Swavely and Justin Erb. Those two drivers running in 9th and 8th, and even further up the road, that really ailing number 45 of Cedric Hunter could give away more track position before this is all said and done. So for right now, field in the hands of the 78 machine of Warren Kyle Keith as Ross Harlow gets to the inside. And again, he's going to try and fight for the top spot as Lawson Peel in the background is getting close. And now Harlow will spin to the inside wall off the corner. And the yellow flag will not come out, but it is more drama. Keith loses spots. Lawson Peel will steal the race lead at lap 213. And just when you thought things wouldn't get more dramatic, the fireworks pop out. Keith falls out to 4th. And in the squabble up with Ross Harlow, sends the 16 to the inside wall, and the two fastest cars for the entry point of stage 3 are now struggling to keep pace. And let's see how this all unfolded. It was that near contact between the two. I'd imagine it was nearly similar to what we saw between Steven Stepien and Warren Kyle Keith earlier on in this race. And so here's the fight for the lead. Keith up top, Harlow running the bottom, and that's where he started to get better rotation, had his nose to the inside. And it's right about here. Keith backs up, Harlow washes up high, makes the side-by-side contact, and then Keith just rides the wall back into the corner, and that's where he loses first, then he loses second, then he gives away third, and finally all the way around in turn 2 off the back straightaway is where he's able to regain all that ground and get his car back underway without touching that outside safer barrier. And all in that, Lawson Peel is able to be in the right place at the right time to take the race lead, entering the final 80. And it has been wild from Bristol, to say the least. There's Jeff Gilmore down pit road, a car who is already a lap down in 13th place. And Eric Schaefer, I believe we saw him either hit pit road or go a lap down. It looks like he has really struggled on pace as he has dropped back, and actually wasn't back in 13th. So he is going to be a lap down in a bit of a tough position. Stephen Harlow and Justin Erb, they're going to go side by side. That's going to be for 8th. As Zachary Hall tries to creep up on his teammate and fellow friend, Cedric Hunter. And it is becoming pandemonium here in the mid-pack as they fight for position. Erb getting a big, nasty hit to the outside wall. Here comes the Hemlock Toyota. There's Richard Swavely down the inside. And Stephen Maggio, despite winning 3 races this season, being the standout rookie of the campaign, hasn't found much speed here at Bristol Motor Speedway. Probably not one of those tracks that he really likes that much on the iRacing sim, and just trying to fully get a grapple of things as he'll steal away 10th there from Swavely. And the rig man has done a nice job of staying afloat. The driver last in the point standings for the postseason going into this race tonight, as he was 12th below the cut line by 11 points. Same situation as Alex Muscarella. But with Alex Muscarella's stage victory and with how well he's run tonight and given Swavely's pace, maybe it's going to be a bigger difference. And it may just be still below the cut line for Swavely as we enter the Darlington race 2 weeks from tonight. But so far staying alive as they try to fight for top 10 territory with TOW Racing, Home Depot Chevrolet of Justin Erb. On the outside there is Zachary Hall. To the inside is Maggio, right behind Stephen Harlow in P7. So far, closest battles of the field that we're seeing right now. And for Justin Erb, same position as Craig Parks going into this green flag race, as he was 4 points out. And of course, Craig Parks DNFing tonight, that will send him further back, may indeed be last. And now Eric Schaefer is spinning off of the corner. The tap from Richard Swavely gets Schaefer around, and there is the yellow flag. 71 laps shy of the race ending. Eric Schaefer a lap down. Has gone from struggling to sideways. And after one of our longest green flag stretches of the evening, we'll be under the yellow again. As this is how it all unfolded. The fight with Richard Swavely on the outside. And we've seen a lot of those things happen. Contact between a guy running up high, a guy running down low. And whether it just be looseness or not, there was definitely help between these two cars. So Swavely runs up high. Swavely gets the bottom. And as soon as Schaefer's arcing back down to get an entry into turn 4 and the exit off to the straightaway, that's where that minimal contact ensues, and Swavely went a bit high, and that's exactly where that contact happens. And of course, so close to the quarter panel, but not enough close to the side of the race car to make it a savable effort. And yep, just high momentum, quick spin, and Schaefer going around at the exit of what is turn 2. Now the whole field on pit road. Lawson Peel came in. He will come out first. Stempien and Muscarella will be in third and second. And for Harlow and Keith, they'll fall back to 4th and 5th. And I think there's front end nose damage on Ross Harlow's machine. There is. So I don't know what happened there, whether Harlow found some damage entering pit road or whether something else happened. I have no idea what happened to the 16 car. And it seems like that damage happened well before the field came down pit road. So it appears that was a very interesting scenario there for the 16 car. And he will be in 4th with that front end nose damage. Not sure if that will hamper the engine performance on the race car. But so far, as we enter the final 68 here from Bristol Motor Speedway, it will be possibly a dash to the finish. And, you know, we talked about the 100% fuel, how possibly at the beginning of stage 3, it could be close, but maybe not enough. We were still kind of pondering, at least I was still pondering. I'm not very good at math, so it's kind of hard for me to put those numbers together and give you a concrete answer. But, you know, with 100% fuel, you can go a really long way here to track this short. When you're not burning that much fuel, you're spending a lot of time rotating on the brakes through the corners. But now that we have this final pit stop, now that the tires are slapped onto the race cars again anew, these cars can make it to the end of this race without a concern. We've seen laps go by very quickly. We've seen these stretches go past 60 laps to 65 laps. And, you know, in that long green flag run, we went quite a while. So it will not be a concern on either front for any driver in this field. Frankly, to say it is going to be an all-out dash to the finish. So Lawson Peel, who took control of this race after a mistake between Ross Harlow and Warren Kyle Keith, will command the field back to the restart zone. Green flag waves from Bristol, Tennessee. Stempien in second. Muscarella the send to take away the runner-up spot to turn 3. What a dashing effort for the knight in shining silver, and he is sideways off the corner. And he'll save it in the middle of 3 abreast. Cedric Hunter right behind. Ross Harlow to the inside, and an unbelievable save by the Cobalt car will keep him afloat. He'll give up second for now, near contact behind for 4th. And you can hear the scrapes off the outside wall. These guys are giving it all that they've got, all the effort they can expend here in the final 64. And now the onboard look from Cedric Hunter. As it's a battle between lanes, Muscarella is surging forward. He's a rocket ship at the beginning of this race and the restart. And the stage 1 winner wants more than just that. He wants an advancement into the next round after being the last guy to be in from the round of 12 alongside Richard Swavely. Now he'll dial up the bottom alley, trying to get an edge on the race leader, but he cannot do it. Door shut. He'll hit the reset button to try again. And the onboard look from Peel, watching on as Muscarella executes the crossover. Hezzy down the inside. He'll plant and fire off of turn 4, but he cannot get the rotation through. And once again, the wall stays put for Lawson Peel. Defense remains the top priority for the Napa Auto Care Chevrolet in pursuit of win number 8. But now here comes Muscarella. Huge run off turn 4. He'll get the run down low to turn 1. And how many times have we seen that on fresh tires? You plant the throttle on the outside of the corner and you let it rip down the straightaway. It's not a long straightaway to either of the turns respectively, but you've got enough speed to try and lunge forward, and that's what Muscarella's doing right now. Almost reminiscent of what Keith was doing to Ross Harlow, except they were both running the same lane, so Keith was in a bit more dirty air. Peel is a bit more comfortable running the bottom, doesn't really mind giving up that clean air to the 48 car up top, but he holds down the fort once again. And you got to wonder, is there enough gas for Muscarella left to give out, or whether he will tire out here in the fight for the lead. Here he comes again. Inside look. And right here at the apex, that's where he hasn't been able to fully execute the rotation and get to the race lead, so Muscarella will hang back again to try once more. And it'll be turn 4, the target spot. He'll try and lunge hard in the brakes in turn 3. He may have the nose up there off of turn 4. Catches the outside wall. And Peel wondering, how long is it going to take before he goes away? Another send to turn 1. On board look from Peel. It's 47 laps and counting for the Columbus, Mississippi native, who has led at least one lap in every single race this year. And that includes Daytona, where he led 1 and ended up finishing in 2nd. Or rather, he led 4 laps in that race. Only one that he hasn't led, and it was at Nashville Super Speedway. But from every other race, he's been able to lead at least 1 or more. And he led 47 en route to victory at Texas Motor Speedway. Led 24 laps at Watkins Glen to get the win before that. And a driver searching to become the first guy to go 3 in a row. Something that we've never seen in the level of dominance in this series. And with less than 50 to go, he is looking down the barrel. Alex Muscarella trying his dearest to keep pace, but the tires are starting to fall away. Stepien now reeling in his teammate for P2. And Peel is sideways. He'll nearly tap the outside wall. What a save by Lawson Peel to keep it off the wall, but he gives up the lead. Muscarella back to the front from Bristol. Oh my goodness. A rare mistake by Peel off the corner. Got too much throttle. The rear tires caught up, and he just lost control. But he wiggled it down the whole straightaway just to keep it planted back into the banking. And what a save it was. And didn't even give that much up in the process. Oh my goodness. A ridiculous save by Lawson Peel as he'll try to retain the race lead. Here's the fight for 4th. What a recovery drive for Stephen Harlow. Down to the inside of Cedric Hunter. And this will work here off of turn 4. And that's that bottom right-hand camera of Stephen Harlow as he works the wheel behind the rig. As the 25-year-old from Fairhaven, Vermont, trying to recuperate after what's been a back-and-forth evening with a ton of right front damage. As up front, the battle for the lead ensues again. This time on the attack is the 9 car. Washes up through the apron in the middle of the corner. That's turn 2. And Muscarella again faithful to the high skies near the safer barrier. And Peel will try the effort down low to fire that arrow. But so far, no can do for the Napa Auto Care machine. And once again, they're going to reel in that 3rd place car. How many times have we seen this before? Fight for the lead will bring in that 3rd place car. Then the fight for 2nd will bring in 4th. Then so on and so forth. We've seen as max 6 cars in a group, at least a 2nd, and there was near contact. Muscarella going hard into the wall from the rear quarter panel. And was that contact or was that arrow packing off the rear end of the 48? We'll see if we can dial up the replay. I'm not sure whether they tapped or whether there was some sort of aero games at play there. You look at the inside. Peel was down there. And as they surge to turn 1, yeah, there is a bit of contact that seemed to be some of that touching between the front end of the 9 car and then, of course, that quarter panel of that silver Lowe's Cobalt Chevrolet of Muscarella. So in turn, he'll fall back to 3rd. Lawson Peel, the race leader, with under 40 laps to go. And even though Peel has won 7 races this season, none, and I mean none of them, have come at a short track. We've seen him win at road courses, of course swept both of them this season with Road America earlier on in the regular campaign, and then Watkins Glen in the middle of the playoffs, that final race in the round of 16. And then his other wins, a 1.5 miles at Texas, then a super speedway at Daytona in that beautiful and sensational 1/1000th of a second victory over Warren Kyle Keith. And then the D-shaped oval at Michigan. And then another win earlier on in the season at the Auto Club Speedway. And then another 1.5 miles at Las Vegas. Through all of the short track events this season, he has not been able to win. Phoenix Raceway had a strong race car, but that ultimately went to his teammate Eric Schaefer. Dover Motor Speedway, that's when Jaden Porter stunted on the scene and immediately made an impact and dominated to the victory. And then the short track after that is this one, Bristol Motor Speedway. And we had New Hampshire in there as well, if you want to count that as a short track, to which Peel could have easily won that race, but could not end up in the front in those final laps. And Ross Harlow was able to steal that victory then. But here entering the final 32 with Steven Stepien on his tail, Lawson Peel can try to go for an unprecedented 8th win, while Stepien wants a 2nd. And these two drivers, lots of experience racing in the sim against each other. These are two guys that go way back in their sim racing careers. Stepien racing as far back as the NR 2003 days when, you know, Dale Jr., Josh Berry, and them used to have leagues across the board. Stepien used to run in those early year leagues with a lot of his friends in the NR 2003 days. Made the move to iRacing in 2008. And ever since, he has been one of the staples in our KBueno Racing Network coverage across Sunoco Cup Series action. And right here in the series that he calls home, the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series, and a series that he sponsors himself. And now just 28 laps away from trying to steal a race victory from the man who has called himself the greatest of this series already. It is 3 car lengths between the two leaders. Muscarella another half-second back in P4, or P3 rather, and then P4 back to Cedric Hunter, who kind of settled back in the long green flag portion before that yellow flag came out in the middle of the run between Eric Schaefer and Richard Swavely. He was struggling dearly on his set of tires, but looks like he's found some extra life behind his Toyota Camry. May indeed take away a podium before this is all said and done. And then in your top 5, Stephen Harlow, who's been able to recover nicely despite that right front damage he picked up earlier on in the race that he still hasn't been able to fully nurse. As here comes Stepien, within a car length, within a few feet, runs the outside lane. 25 laps to go from Bristol, and he's there. And Stepien told us then in the little interview that we had with him off of the stage victory that he just needs to find a way to close out one of these deals. A lot of races where he felt it could go in his hands that never really ended up as a victory in the result. A lot of top 5 finishes, lots of great races, but lots of moments where we could have been easily asking ourselves, what if? What if Stepien stuck around long enough? What if he didn't end up in a crash? What if the bad luck didn't catch him? What if? But he could very make this a what will be if he can try and close this out in the final 20 and beat a fellow friend that he's raced with for several years on the iRacing service very hard and very clean in Lawson Peel. And for Stepien, the last 3 weeks, last 3 consecutive poles other than tonight from Bristol where he didn't start on the front row. But right now he's within grasp. Within another car length, he's been able to build up a solid run. Can he produce the crossover here off of turn 4? Answer will be no to 20 laps to go. And they got back to Cedric Hunter about a second as he got away third from Alex Muscarella. He's in the background in that bright pink Hello Kitty Toyota Camry, but the focus is on these two Chevrolets fighting for the lead to 18 laps to go. Stepien runs the high side. He wants a bit more of that clean air, but can he get the breakthrough? He hasn't been able to break that bubble between himself and the rear bumper of that Napa Auto Care Chevrolet in front. But again, all it takes is one mistake. We saw how Pio stepped out of line, had to save the race car down the straightaway, gave up the lead to Alexander Muscarella. And if the race is closing down to the final few laps, as Stepien goes down to the inside, there could very well be another change for the lead. Stepien washes up. He got understeery in the middle of the corner, and Pio holds on for now. To 15 laps to go next time. What an outstanding race we've seen from Bristol tonight. Plenty of battles for the lead. Fights in the top 5. Playoff storylines between Muscarella winning stage 1. Between Swavely at the back getting involved with Eric Schaefer. Between Brandon Banks and Craig Parks being involved. Despite all of the newness in the storylines for this race, the common thread remains always here in the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series. It's Lawson Peel at the front with a chance to cling on to the victory in the final 13. As now creeping up to the foreground is Cedric Hunter. He's found some life behind the wheel of his Toyota Camry, and he can start to make an impact, and there's still a lot of time left. And the onboard look from Hunter as he watches the top 2 run in front. And the gap now underneath 2 car lengths between himself and that Droppin' the Hammah green and black Chevrolet. They are approaching some lap traffic. It's Jeff Gilmore at the inside in front. But not sure how much that will affect the race for the lead. As I believe that's Richard Swavely up the road, who may indeed fall a lap down as he's running so far in P6. So I don't believe it actually is him. It may indeed be another driver in the field. But Cedric Hunter to the inside now, coming to 9 laps to go. A 3-horse fight for the win here at the last Great Coliseum, and still no changes for position. And you got to ask, what differently can you do if you're Steven Stepien as you're put in that Oreo spot? Offense playing is Cedric Hunter, so Stepien has to be wary of that, and then trying to push forward to Lawson Peel to pressurize the race leader, and this could be pivotal here. Hunter down to the bottom alley off of turn 4. He'll have the nose ahead as they surge down to turn 1. Cedric Hunter will have second place and a chance at the win with 7 laps to go. That's exactly what Cedric Hunter needed, a quick pass for second place so he can now start to work on the leader. And Hunter, who won a pair of stages way early in the season at Las Vegas, has been close like his teammate Zachary Hall, but he hasn't been able to find that golden moment. Tonight could very well be another one for the winner at Charlotte Motor Speedway to get a secondary race win. As he's got the inside, Pierre runs up near the outside wall. 4 laps to go next time. And can Peel hold on for as long as possible? His car is getting looser and looser throughout the course of the run, and Hunter's been able to save. We're side by side for the race lead off of turn 4. Final 3 here from Bristol. And this could be the moment that things start to change. Hunter down the inside. Peel fights back, runs up the hill. 2 laps to go. And a hard-fought effort for Cedric Hunter could be rewarded with a race win if he can get by They'll come around to the white flag here from Bristol, and it's now still side by side. Back to turn 1. Can this be a moment for the ages for Cedric Hunter? In 3 and 4 for the final time. Peel playing defense, side by side to the stripe, but Lawson Peel takes away his 8th career, dropping the Hammah Cup Series race. Unbelievable run to the finish, and by 64 1/1000ths of a second, Lawson Peel stays ahead and plays the defense necessary for career win number 8. And for the first time at a short track this season, Lawson Peel enters Droppin the Hammah victory lane, a place that he's found very much familiar. And that nearly could have been a closer photo finish. Your top 3 all within a 1/10 of a second as they came around to the checkered flag. Let's get a look at how that all unfolded between Peel, Hunter, and Stepien. 3 very different races, between Peel being the most dominant in the final stint, Stepien giving it all that he could in the final few, and then Cedric Hunter, who shot out of a cannon. Here were the final few laps and that final charge off of turn 4. Just a very, very sharp margin of victory there off turn 4. Peel gets the wall, the minor contact with Cedric Hunter, who just couldn't get closer. He went higher and higher on the racetrack to push Peel closer to the wall and make him flinch. But it really was not enough. And Lawson Peel parks it on the front straightaway. His 8th victory and his 3rd in a row. He likes him in 3s. Lawson Peel getting the victory here from Bristol in unbelievable fashion at the end. What a race that was to the finish line, as we'll get a look at the unofficial results here after 300 laps and 160 miles from Bristol, Tennessee, where, of course, Lawson Peel getting the victory at the end. Cedric Hunter just short by 64 1/1000ths of a second, and Peel denies any opportunity at another playoff driver getting a golden ticket into the semifinal round. Steven Stepien a 10th back in 3rd. Huge credit to the race that he put up in the final segment. With Alex Muscarella, this is a well-deserved 4th place finish for the 48 machine. Came into this race 11 points shy of the cut line in the playoffs, and he's moved up forward. Stephen Maggio wraps up a top 5, the only non-playoff driver in the running 10 at the checkered flag. Richard Swabley, despite struggling a bit throughout the course of the race, he's been able to recover nicely. Justin Urban 7th, Stephen Harlow 8th, Zachary Hall in 9th, and Ross Harlow picks up a top 10 despite all of that, as Lawson Peel's going to try to get into Bristol Motor Speedway victory lane. It's something that you can do here on the sim now. They added the victory lane, but we'll see if he can do it. I don't know if he was denied or whether he's going to try again, but well, the 9 car is going to do it nonetheless. He's going to try and put his car into victory lane. While he does that, let's get through the rest of the results here from 11th on back, starting with Kip Easley in his number 8 Chevrolet. He finishes as the last car on the lead lap, with Eric Schaefer back in 12th, a lap down. Jeff Gilmore in the 13th place in 2 laps down. Warren Kyle Keith, strong start, and it's another sour finish. 14th place is where he will end up. Jason Anderson, top 15. Brandon Banks in 16th. Kevin Roy back in 17th place, with Craig Parks in 18th. Casey Knighton in 19th. And top 20 for the number 19 car of Brad Fulham. Back in 21st is no one. That is the entire field here from Bristol, Tennessee. So another victory for the number 9 car of Lawson Peel, as he still tries to put his car into victory lane. Again, I promise that we ended up with a victory lane that is accessible, but he's trying to get through, and I'm not sure he's going to be really able to. He really has to go up through the ramp there, but for right now, things seem to be a bit of a work in progress for Lawson as he tries to get into victory lane. But let's join him now. And I don't know if it was more of a Jaws theme tonight, Lawson, or whether it was just a full defensive stance between yourself, Cedric Hunter, and Steven Stepien, an all-out run to the finish line as you try to get into victory lane right now, because we're watching you try to get up the ramp.
Let me
are
see
the
where
thoughts
it's at
about?
on the broadcast here because I can't. I guess my event's off. I can't see it over here. Can you give me an angle, Kenneth? Maybe I can see it. I
All
don't
right,
know.
well, we're gonna try.
Go
Okay,
ahead,
turn
go
here.
ahead.
Turn here. You're good right now.
Okay. As soon as the broadcast catches up here a little bit, I'm gonna just see if it'll let me drive up here.
You're on par right now, though. You're good.
Okay.
There you go.
All
All right, you can
right.
straighten out the wheel, and I think you're
Straighten
gonna
out.
be good.
Oh, I'm going. I'm going. Okay.
Oh, there it is. All right, so
We're
you're gonna veer to the left a little bit, and then. All right, full left
Oh,
right here.
wait.
Full left.
Hard left.
Hard left.
Wait, do I need to back up? Oh no.
All right, well.
Oh no, I might be stuck.
Well, it's a beach race car, but the emotion's all the same. Lost in 3 race wins in a row. We have never seen that before. All-time dominance right now in the middle of these Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series playoffs. But tell us your thoughts about what it was all like in that final stint. You're holding off Steven Stepien. Cedric Hunter comes out of nowhere, and you have to keep up at the front. What was all of that like?
Yeah, it was just crazy. I mean, I knew they were back there trying to save their tires, and I was trying to pace myself, and right front was going away. It's just so hard to pass, especially to complete a pass on the bottom. You got to have a big tire advantage or a mistake out of somebody, and so track positioning, clean air is kind of king when you get up there. I had the lead, and I got super loose off the corner one time. I don't know how I didn't right going down the straightaway and gave the lead to Alex, and then just netcoded him really bad there. I think in 1 and 2. So I hate that happen. And as Cedric and Stepien were kind of catching up to me under 10 to go there, I was really paranoid that was going to happen to me because I was going to try not to give them my right side, and so I knew they were going to try to pass me on the bottom and run me up as high as they could and use as much of the track as they could. So I knew we were in for a battle there. So yeah, hats off to those guys. Great race. Just tried to milk it to the end there. And yeah, 300 laps, long race, but it went by pretty quickly. So
a lot of them green flag running, specifically in those final few stints. And when we talk about all-time dominance, you can think of many drivers in the real life side of things. And I've seen plenty of dominant drivers, and you seem to be the man here in this Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series. It seemed to have just turned the page for what we've seen in the Sunoco Cup Series over the last several years. But 3 in a row between Watkins Glen, Texas, and tonight. What's been the magic to capture these wins and to be able to achieve such an accomplishment this year?
I try to come into the race with the same mindset, which is only take what the car's going to give me, try to avoid, wrecks and problems and everything, and just take care of it till the end when it's, when it's needed and when it's time to go. And so I just feel like I'm kind of on high alert in the beginning of a race, not to make a mistake, and not to get caught up in a wreck or whatever. And that just, it seems to work. If you could just focus on taking care of yourself, and then as you get closer to the finish, you just generally start stepping up the aggression and driving a little harder, maybe making a little bit more riskier moves, but, always working your way up to that as the race is going on. And so I feel like that works out for me pretty well, in these long races with a limited size field. So, yeah, Darlington coming up 2 weeks from now. Certainly not a great track for me, and it'd be interesting to see how this car drives there. And then I think we had 2 drafting tracks after that leading into the championship. So we're just kind of gearing up for a very interesting final few races here. Should be very exciting and a lot of fun.
Well, it's been fun to watch you take away these races. I know Francisco had the chance to see the last 2 between Watkins Glen and Texas, and as soon as I come back, it's still you winning. So it seems like nothing much has changed as you have that golden ticket into the next round starting at Kansas in several weeks' time. But before we let you go on this 8th career victory in the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series, anybody that you want to thank that made it all possible?
Yeah, thanks to you guys in the booth. Thanks to the admin team. Thanks to my teammates. And, to everybody that makes it happen. And I'm sorry I could not get up into victory lane here. I didn't think about it at first. And then I was like, oh, I can get up there. And, darn it if I can't see it. So I got close. I'm sorry. I know that would have looked great, and yeah, I'm disappointed that I got this close and then I beached it here on this transition or whatever,
Well,
and now I'm just
look,
stuck. So
I'll
I'm sorry.
I'll give you credit because when Brandon Hawken won at Phoenix, we were urging him to get into victory
I
lane, and
know.
he didn't do it. So at
Yeah.
least there's more of a chance, there's more of a try here, there's more of an attempt. So
Yeah, I'm glad the thought finally came to me, but I just, I didn't close the deal here. I didn't make it, but got close. Sorry.
well, it's all
Appreciate you
good.
guys.
All good. You close out the deal tonight for your 8th victory of the season, 3rd in a row. Congratulations, Lawson, on behalf of all of us here at the KBueno Racing Network, and we'll see you in the field at Darlington Raceway in 2 weeks' time. We hope you have a happy and safe July 4th weekend.
Yeah, appreciate it. You too.
So that's Lawson Peel in second. Rather, in the race lead, he ended up winning this race. Second place goes to Steven Stepien, who ended up second tonight from Bristol Motor Speedway. Rather, Cedric Hunter is going to end up second. Going to try to put my words together at the right center of a moment. Going to try to put some of these graphics together. But Cedric Hunter, a driver who did phenomenal tonight here from Bristol Motor Speedway, will join us now, just a bit short of the checkered flag. But Cedric, what a performance it was in that final stint. You saved enough tire, and we kind of noted your degression earlier on in the race where the tires sort of fell away, but that final run really played to your strengths on the inside. How did that car feel? Because from what we saw, it looked like a rocket ship as you were charging to the front.
Yeah, it felt good. The run before that, I figured that we were probably, well, at least I was hoping that we were going to go green for the entire last run, and we can make it on gas. I was really just backing up my pace to try and save the tires, because that was the thing, I guess, that probably, I don't know if it would have made it to the end, but my pace was pretty decent. I mean, I fell back, but I was content with my pace. And then when I pitted, when the caution came out, I felt really good about my tire wear, and I figured that I'd have to kind of do the same thing the last stint, just a little bit more pushing. And, obviously I did a decent job at saving the tires and kind of making a late charge. I might be a little too nice with how I finish these races, but as long as I'm not making any enemies on my way to, some checkers, then I guess there's something to say about that.
So with those final laps, you beat Steven Stepien, you're on the inside, and you make that move for second, and then it's all on you and the race leader, Lawson Peel. I mean, you still have Stepien right behind you, but it's basically you and the 9 car all the way to the end. What was that mindset like in using the different lanes to try and get around Peel, and, what kind of alternative strategies were you thinking in those final few to at least get that bit of an edge here at Bristol, to where it seems like both lanes seem to be pretty even and drivers can stay side by side for a pretty long time?
Yeah, I mean, I knew that, like, I was really good on the bottom, and I think I could have, I mean, I did get there, I guess. I got to him kind of by running the bottom, but it's not really a lane where you can necessarily make a pass right now with how just iRacing is, or at least Bristol is. So I knew that if I just kind of stayed committed to the bottom, that I was always going to get alongside of him, and then he was just going to gap me on exit. So I kind of had to move my way up the track and get closer and closer to him. And there was a couple times where I felt really, really good. I got completely equal with him through kind of the center and then late exit. And there was twice in particular that he ended up tapping the wall, which I will give him credit. He didn't do it much throughout the race, especially compared to some other guys in the field. But it was enough of a tap to kind of give him a really good run down the straightaway. And to be honest, I feel like that kind of sealed it up for him. Really good racing. I didn't want to race him dirty at all. Lawson and I have raced each other really clean throughout the season. I was kind of planning on keeping that going. So congrats to him. He did a heck of a job tonight, and for sure deserving of the win.
Well, Cedric, it's a phenomenal finish tonight, and given your scenario in the playoffs heading into this race from Bristol, plus 16, definitely going to be much higher as you guys enter Darlington, so possibly a safer entry into the semi-final round once we get to Kansas on later on this season. But before we let you go, Cedric, on this P2 effort from Bristol, anybody that you want to thank that made it all possible?
Yeah, I want to give a huge shout out to the admins in this league for setting these races up. Huge shout out to you. Also, welcome back. I hope you had a great vacation. It's good to see you back up in the booth. I'm really excited to go back and watch this broadcast tomorrow. Shout out to Lawson for winning the race. Shout out to my teammate Zach Hall. He had a pretty okay run tonight. Nothing spectacular, but he's been having a hard time with figuring out this update. So I think that over the next couple of weeks, we're just going to kind of have to go back to the chalkboard and try and find pace for him, and get him back up to speed. So I think Darlington next week will be a good race for him, and I'm going to try and do whatever I can to help him advance. I assume he's probably going to be in a tough position going into next week for points. So and obviously my situation is going to be a lot more comfortable, so I'll be able to help him out. So hopefully we can get both Category 5 team or cars into the round of 8.
Trying to get everybody eating for Category 5 esports, a good method as you guys head into Darlington in a couple of weeks' time. Cedric, of course, I appreciate the kind words. I was on vacation. I was having a good time, and Francisco did a great job holding down the fort, but I had FOMO. I was the fear of missing out on this series, and, there were 2 great races between the Glen and at Texas, so very happy to be back, and great to talk to you again, Cedric. Congratulations on the P2. We'll see you guys at Darlington in a couple weeks' time.
Have a good one, man.
Cedric Hunter in his 45 car, just a bit short of the race victory, but he gave it his all in those final few. You can definitely give him credit for that on his 7th podium of this 2025 season. That does include the victory earlier this season at the virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway. Well, let's join the 3rd place driver. That is Steven Stepien. Man, Steven, this car was fast in that final run, but you were right on the tail of Lawson Peel. Became an all-out war between yourself, Hunter, and Peel in those final few laps. What did that all feel like, and what maybe did you feel was missing in that final stint?
I don't know, man. Whoa, excuse me. Damn, we're gonna get sorry for the sweat. I just can't figure out this season, I guess. I don't know. I think I'm saving enough to know what I need to do to make it around Lawson. I know he battled pretty hard with Alex. So I was just babying my stuff, taking it easy, and I said around like 280 I was gonna give it a go and see what I could do. And I just I don't know, maybe I waited too long and didn't take advantage of how much I saved, I guess. Maybe I should have pounced on him earlier. I guess we'll never know. It's a learning curve with this new tire model, and you're really trying to see what works and what doesn't work. And I thought I was staying in clean air pretty good throughout the night. I was running that middle lane pretty good, getting the drive off on the corners, and it just wasn't enough at the end of the day. It's been a depressing season for me. I can't believe I'm saying that with 8-9 stage wins, but I just feel like I should have a lot more wins than I do, I guess.
Lots of close calls, lots of moments that could have gone your way. And as you step into tonight's race from Bristol, a lot of great pace behind the wheel of this car, another stage win, so more points to your credit. We know that there's a very, very good track for you coming up in the next couple weeks, a track that I'm sure you have circled like you've had a couple of venues throughout this 2025 season. We know that you already have a win at Gateway, but the hunger surely is still there. What's it going to take at Darlington in a couple weeks, that throwback race, to step in, lock in, and get that win that puts you in that semifinal round?
Honestly, it's going to be a vacation up in Maine Tuesday. I'm not coming back till next Tuesday, so it's going to be a nice little reset for me, and go to a track that I know how to get it done at. There's a lot of good drivers here that weren't in Sunoco or MPI, Zach, Cedric, and stuff. So we'll see how they are at Darlington. I know that those two are pretty good at Darlington. Ross is pretty good at Darlington, but it's just one of those tracks that I know how to get it done, and hopefully the tire model didn't change too much. I did some laps there a couple weeks ago, but I think we should be pretty good. Looking forward to hopefully dominating that race and just going out and getting a win and sending it into the second to the last round, because that round is chaotic, man. I'm not looking forward to that. I don't know who made that schedule. But it's been a interesting. I know you haven't been here in a couple of weeks, but there's the new tire model and the new aero physics and everything. Played a huge role at Texas. Played a huge role tonight. So it's just coming you just learning each race, and as the stages go by, you're picking up things that you didn't pick up in practice and stuff like that. So we'll see how next week, 2 weeks go. It's gonna be nice to have a week off because I think I need a reset. It's been one of those seasons for me.
But hopefully things continue to turn around and maybe there's another victory in the cards, maybe at Darlington in the next couple of weeks. Steven, on behalf of all of us at the KBueno Racing Network, congratulations on the 3rd place finish. Maybe I'll be a little on you about the schedule decisions because I know you're at the helm with Chris Progar, so maybe a little banter there between 2 super speedways in the round, but
I don't know how that got by me, man.
Well, we'll see. It'll surely be a lot of fun. But anybody that you want to thank first and foremost before we let you bounce?
You guys, obviously, everything you guys do for us here, and the drivers that keep coming out. I know there's a lot of guys that have been eliminated from the playoffs, and I appreciate the guys that have been coming out and making it harder on us. Hopefully, we'll get those numbers sorted out next season. But obviously, just you guys, Progosh, thoughts and prayers with him. I know he's lost his had put down his cat, so he wasn't able to show up today. And the whole admin team, congratulations to Lawson, everybody at the DTH crew. I really thought the DTH crew did really good. Those first 2 stages we were really dominant. So that was good to see. I think we had it down pat, but we'll take it. We'll take it off to Darlington. Gonna spend some time with my lovely wife and my 2 kids, and it's my son's birthday in a couple of days. So we're gonna have a good time, and we'll come back ready for Darlington.
A chance to mentally reset and get refocused for that Darlington race in a couple weeks. Steven, congratulations on the 3rd place finish again. We hope you and your family have a safe and happy 4th of July weekend. Going to be a lot of fun on the off week, but we'll be ready to get things sorted at Darlington in 2 weeks' time. So congratulations, and we'll see you then.
I appreciate it, my man. You have a good night, and enjoy your 4th.
Steven Stepien, 3rd place here from Bristol Motor Speedway. Going to try to use that off week as a chance to reset. We talk about that off week. 4th of July weekend is on Friday, starts on Friday, so we will not have a race this Sunday night, the upcoming Sunday night, but we will be back in action the following Sunday, where Darlington Raceway will greet the field, and the round of 12 comes to an end. We'll cut it down to 8 drivers that make that semifinal round, the 7 others that will join Lawson Peel, who has swept the first 2 here in this round of 12. Then we'll go on to Kansas Speedway to kick off the round of 8, then 2 super speedways before we elect the 4 that make it to the championship finale, Talladega Super Speedway, and then Atlanta, now renamed to the Echo Park Speedway. And, we kind of talk about the idea of having 2 straight super speedway races on the schedule, but nonetheless, we're going to move, we're going to have a lot of fun, and we're going to try and digest it all with you here on the KBueno Racing Network. So coverage ensues next week. So again, or around 2 weeks' time, so we will have another week of off time, and then we'll be back in action on July 13th. That's where you'll find the action at 8:05 p.m. Eastern right here on the KBueno Racing Network, is where you can find all coverage of the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series. And this one from Bristol surely was a barn burner, but it was a lot of fun. And once again, the field ends up in the hands of Lawson Peel, who carries it all the way to the start-finish line. He lights him in 3s, a 3rd straight victory, and an 8th on the season, as the 7 other drivers try to point themselves in, maybe win themselves in through Darlington in a couple of weeks' time. So for Steven Stepien and Chris Progar, the entire admin team that makes it all happen at the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series, for all their hard work, and for everyone at the KBueno Racing Network, for Charlie Byer, Keelan Belsha, Eli Comerford, and our good friend Francisco Bacalao, I am Kenneth Bueno, saying I'm glad to be back, and we'll be back in 2 weeks' time. But for now, congratulations to Lawson Peel on his 8th victory of the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series season, his first here at Bristol Motor Speedway.